Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are taking a really focused look at one of the most, I think, perfectly crafted poems in all of Scripture,
hmm
Psalm 114. We've got a fantastic set of analyses and some deep textual work to draw from today, all centered on these powerful 8 verses.
It really is a masterpiece, isn't it? It's so concise. In just, what, a few short lines,
hmm
it manages to pack in the entire defining story of Israel.
Everything is there.
The Exodus, the wilderness, the giving of the law, entering the promised land, it's all there in this one vivid, uh, dramatic narrative.
And so our mission for this discussion is to really pull out the profound and I think actionable truths about God's presence, his power,
Provision.
and his provision, yes,
Yeah,
to see what this poem reveals for you listening right now.
exactly.
We want to get past just, reciting the history and really understand what happens when the creator literally steps into his creation.
What are the consequences?
Yes, what are the physics of that divine presence? And Psalm 114 gives us the answer. And for our discussion, we're really leaning on the comprehensive analysis from the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
Their work is just fantastic for connecting this ancient drama to the reality of a believer's life today. It provides a great framework.
It really does.
And that framework is key. They outline how the psalm works like a high drama play with a clear emotional arc.
Right.
It kicks off with this act of remembrance, this defining of a new identity. Then it shifts, showing creation's almost terrifying response to God's presence.
And then the resolution.
And then it resolves all that tension by finally revealing the source of that power and confirming God's commitment to provide.
Which sets the core theme right out of the gate. This
Yeah.
isn't just about moving a bunch of people from, say, point A to point B.
Not at all.
It's about a radical fundamental shift in identity,
Yeah.
in ownership. It's about God turning slaves into his own people, foreigners into family.
And that transformation is the bedrock for the whole psalm. It all starts the moment God steps into history to say, these people belong to me.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's jump right into the first section. From slavery to sanctuary, a defining change in identity. This is all in the first 2 verses, and it just immediately draws this sharp contrast between where they were and who they became.
And the opening lines, they sound so simple, almost like just a historical fact, but the theological weight is just monumental. It's the before and after in a single breath.
Okay, so let's read the first 2 verses. This is from the King James Version. Just listen to how sharply the 2 worlds are contrasted, it says. When Israel went out of Egypt, the house of Jacob from a people of strange language, Judah was his sanctuary, and Israel his dominion. That's Psalm 114, verses 1 and 2.
And that single event, the Exodus,
Hmm.
it is the defining moment in the history of Israel.
Yes.
Everything, their national identity, their culture, their spirituality, it all flows from this one act of deliverance.
From being torn free from the most powerful empire on earth at the time. Let's focus on that first part in verse 1. The cultural departure. They are the house of Jacob, okay, so that's their ancestry. But they're leaving a people of strange language. What does that really mean? Beyond just, they spoke a different dialect.
It's so much deeper than just a translation guide. The strange language here really points to a completely alien worldview.
Okay.
A culture built on paganism, polytheism, and the analysis from the You Need Faith in Jesus team really emphasizes this. Israel was totally immersed in a system where your value was based on what you could produce.
A system of slavery.
The system of slavery, exactly.
Yeah.
And a system that was fundamentally hostile to worshiping the one true God. They were oppressed, they were alienated, spiritually suffocating in a land filled with foreign gods.
So the exit isn't just about getting out of forced labor, it's a spiritual decontamination.
That's a great way to put it.
Leaving behind the toxic environment of strange gods and strange ways of living, they went from being property, basically chattel of Pharaoh, to being, what?
The being defined by God himself. And that's the huge shift in ownership we see in verse 2. The physical exit makes the spiritual transformation possible. They left one master for another, infinitely better one.
Let's look at verse 2 a bit closer. Why the 2 different terms? It says, Judah was his sanctuary and Israel his dominion. Why single out Judah as the sanctuary?
That's a point of really deep nuance in the text. Judah, of course, is the tribe's leadership.
A kingly line.
The kingly line, and ultimately the line of the Messiah. So for Judah to become God's sanctuary, it means this specific tribe was chosen to be his holy dwelling place, the center of his immediate presence among the people.
Okay.
It's a place from which his rule would be established. It's looking forward to the Davidic covenant, to the reign of Christ. The idea is that God chose to to move in through this very specific foundational lineage.
So Judah is the sacred center, the sanctuary, and then the entire nation, Israel, became his dominion. That's so much more than just a liberated group of people.
Oh, absolutely.
They became his kingdom, the territory he personally rules over. They went from being disposable assets of Egypt to being God's personal treasured possession.
And that complete reversal of identity is why the Exodus is so foundational. The "you need faith in Jesus" team analysis really hammers this home. God's powerful work is always fundamentally about changing who we belong to.
About separating us for a special purpose.
A purpose defined by holiness.
And we can actually anchor that idea right in the Old Testament law. It confirms this wasn't just about geography, it was an act of ownership.
Precisely. The context from our source material really highlights that this separation demanded holiness.
Yeah.
We can read it in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 26.
Okay.
It says, "And ye shall be holy unto me, for I the Lord am holy, and have severed you from other people, that ye should be mine."
Severed you, that you should be mine. That is such powerful language. It's like divine surgery.
It is.
Cutting them out of the old life so they can be part of a new one, set apart,
Right.
defined by this new relationship.
And this historical truth, as the analysis we're using points out, it provides this immediate and profound parallel to salvation for us today. It's really the core application of this first section.
Okay, so let's make that practical for everyone listening. If Israel came out of a historical Egypt, what's our Egypt? What's the strange language we're brought out of when we come to faith in Jesus?
Well, the modern Egypt is, I think, slavery to our own fallen nature, isn't it? It's our patterns of self-reliance, the idolatry that's just baked into the world's systems,
Right.
that strange language of consumerism or fear or defining our worth by what we do or what we own. The practical step is realizing that when we are saved, that old life is no longer our master. That's our exodus.
And just like Israel became his sanctuary and dominion, what happens to us as individuals?
God makes us his sanctuary. That's the New Testament fulfillment. The Holy Spirit comes to live inside the believer. The physical temple is replaced by the human heart, the body.
We become the dwelling place for the Spirit of God.
Yes. And at the same time, we're welcomed into his kingdom, his dominion. We now operate under a new authority, a new ownership.
Our identity is just completely rewritten from the inside out. We belong to him. So the practical step for today is to recognize that and live like it.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? The challenge for you listening is to consciously align with that reality. Are you still operating today as if you belong to the Pharaoh of your old habits?
Still speaking that strange language.
Exactly. Or are you living as God's treasured possession, his sanctuary operating under his dominion? That conscious daily recognition of who you belong to, that's the main takeaway from verses 1 and 2.
That new identity is just, it's incredible. But we can't forget that securing it, the actual physical act of getting Israel out of Egypt required a terrifying display of power. Which brings us right into our second section, creation's terrifying response to power.
This is where the psalm shifts gears. It goes from theological definition to cosmic spectacle. The psalmist connects that new sanctuary status with the sheer, raw, overwhelming power needed to protect it from everything.
We're moving into verses 3 and 4 now, and the language is just so visceral. Let's hear how the physical world reacted to God stepping in. It says, "The sea saw it and fled. Jordan was driven back. The mountains skipped like rams, and the little hills like lambs."
That is just an explosion of poetic imagery. And it starts with these miracles of water, this instantaneous defiance of the laws of nature.
And it's two separate events, right? They're separated by decades, but mentioned in the same breath. First, the Red Sea, the sea saw it and fled.
The initial escape.
The miracle that saves them from annihilation by the Egyptian army, that's their physical salvation.
And then Jordan was driven back. This 40 years later, the next generation is about to enter the promised land.
And the genius of the psalmist is linking them.
It's brilliant. He uses them as bookends for the entire wilderness journey, the escape and the entry, both secured by the exact same divine power.
It shows that God's presence wasn't a one-time thing. The power that got them started was the same power that got them home. And the analysis from the "You Need Faith in Jesus" team really stresses this. These weren't just lucky breaks in the weather.
No.
This was a direct, forceful suspension of the laws of nature by the one who wrote them. The sea didn't just recede, it saw it and fled. That implies an intelligence, a recognition.
Creation is responding to its creator. The power is so absolute that the very fabric of the world has to submit. But then the psalm moves from the chaos of the water to the stability of the earth.
Right, the imagery of geological trembling, the mountains skip like rams and the little hills like lambs. That's such a specific image. It's not just an earthquake. Why that picture?
It points directly to Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
It's an intentional theological callback to one of the most terrifying events in Israel's history.
A ram is a big, powerful animal.
Exactly. It represents the major mountains, and yet it skips. A sudden, powerful, almost uncontrolled movement. And the little hills, like lambs, have this delicate tremor. It's showing a response across the entire geological scale.
We tend to think of the giving of the law as this, quiet legislative moment, but the account in Exodus 19 it's terrifying.
We have to remember that. The skipping mountains were a physical reality for them. In Exodus 19, when God descended on Sinai, the text says the whole mountain quaked violently.
There was fire, smoke, a thick cloud.
Thunder, lightning, and this trumpet blast that just got louder and louder until the people were trembling in fear. They had to put a boundary around the mountain so no one would touch it and die.
So the mountains weren't skipping for joy. They were vibrating with the raw energy of God's presence. The very symbols of permanence and stability were showing that they are completely temporary in the face of their creator.
The power was absolute.
Yeah.
And that fundamentally challenges our sense of safety and what's real. The You Need Faith in Jesus team highlights how this imagery forces us to recognize the Maker's power.
It's the ultimate proof that everything from the wild seas to the solid mountains recognizes and submits to the one who made it.
And we see this theme elsewhere in Scripture, too. It's not an isolated idea. For instance, you can look at the prophet Habakkuk, who uses very similar language. In Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 10, it says, "The mountains saw thee, and they trembled. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high."
The mountains saw and trembled. The deep uttered its voice. It's a complete personification of creation witnessing God's power. It's not just being affected by it, it's reacting to it.
And that profound recognition is the reminder for us. The application here is so direct, but its power can change everything. The God we serve is not bound by the laws of nature. He's all-powerful. Creation itself proves it.
This is that perspective check we need. We all have mountains and seas in our lives, right? These obstacles that feel unmovable or situations that are just chaotic and overwhelming. But if God's power is that absolute, why was the main reaction at Sinai just dread? Was that really meant to be encouraging?
That's a crucial question. The terror at Sinai was meant to instill a holy awe, to define the infinite gap between the Creator and the created. But Psalm 114 is looking back at those events from the perspective of someone who was delivered by that power.
Ah, okay.
So the psalmist is saying, yes, this power is terrifying, but it's terrifying to your enemies and to the obstacles in your way. For you, his people, this terrifying power is your defense.
So the practical step is a perspective shift. The You Need Faith in Jesus team encourages us to see that any obstacle, no matter how big it seems, as big as a sea or as solid as a mountain, is absolutely nothing to the God who physically moves geology for his people.
Exactly. If he can make the Red Sea stand up at attention and the mightiest mountains skip, he can certainly deal with your debt or that broken relationship that feels impossible to fix.
The point isn't just that he can do it.
No, the point is that the history of his people proves he does do it. These verses are this incredible encouragement to have faith that God will make a way where there is no way.
It shifts the entire focus from the size of your problem to the power and commitment of your God. It's not just a nice idea. It's rooted in earth-shattering historical reality.
But the psalmist, being this masterful guide, he doesn't just give the answer away. He holds back. He builds one final moment of suspense to force us to focus completely on the cause of all this power.
Which brings us to section 3, the awe of rhetorical questioning. I just love this part. He shifts from describing what happened to basically demanding an explanation from creation itself. It's a dramatic pause to make the final reveal even more powerful.
Let's read verses 5 and 6. This is the direct address to nature. What ailed thee, O thou sea, that thou fleddest, thou Jordan, that thou wast driven back, ye mountains, that ye skipped like rams, and ye little hills like lambs?
What ailed thee? It sounds so conversational, like he's just standing there genuinely puzzled. Sea, why did you run? Mountains, why did you jump?
It's pure rhetorical genius. The goal isn't to get an answer from the sea. The goal is to build tension and force the reader to look past the miracle itself, the parted water, the shaking ground, and focus entirely on the agent behind it all.
It's a literary hook.
It is. It demands that we stop and think before we get the final climatic answer.
And as the You Need Faith in Jesus team points out, the sea and mountains don't have their own free will. They were reacting to a power infinitely greater than themselves. So the question, what ailed thee, isn't born from confusion. It's born from pure, reverent awe.
It makes us realize that the effect, the miracle, only matters because of God's presence. An earthquake is just geology, but a mountain shaking because God is there, that's theology, and that changes everything.
It's interesting, this method of questioning after a display of power, it's not just in the Old Testament. We see it in the New Testament, too.
Oh, that's a fantastic connection that the analysis makes. It links this moment directly to the disciples' reaction when Jesus calmed the storm on the Sea of Galilee.
They'd seen him teach and heal, but they hadn't really grasped his authority over creation itself until that storm. Let's look at their reaction. It's in Mark chapter 4, verse 41. And they feared exceedingly and said one to another, "What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?"
It's the exact same pattern. They see the effect, the storm just stops, and it immediately drives them to ask about the cause. What manner of man is this? The psalmist is forcing us to ask the same question. What is powerful enough to make reality itself bend?
And this teaches us such a vital spiritual discipline, doesn't it? The discipline of intentional reflection.
Yes.
We can't just let these moments of God's intervention in our lives, the answered prayer, the unexpected provision, that sudden peace, just pass by without stopping to think about them.
That is the critical action step here. So often we just rush on, right, and say, oh, that was lucky, or we just get used to God's goodness. The psalmist makes us slow down.
We have to pause.
We have to pause and ask ourselves, what power has done this? Not with doubt, but as an act of worship. It reinforces our faith.
If we don't pause to ask what ailed the sea, when our own personal seas calm down, we miss the chance to give God the glory and really appreciate the power that was at work.
Reflection turns observation into worship. It grounds us in the reality that He is in control. And this intentional pause is the antidote to spiritual apathy.
Okay, so the suspense has been built. After 2 verses of questioning, the psalmist is ready. He's about to deliver the answer and the command for all creation.
Which brings us to the final section, section 4, the dramatic answer and provision from the impossible.
This is it.
This is the whole point of the psalm. These last 2 verses answer the questions, reveal the reason for creation's fear, and show us the dual character of the God who commands it all.
Let's read the powerful conclusion, verses 7 and 8. This is the climax of the whole poem. Tremble, thou earth, at the presence of the Lord, at the presence of the God of Jacob, which turned the rock into a standing water, the flint into a fountain of waters.
And there it is. The cause is revealed instantly in verse 7. Creation fled, the mountains skipped. All because of the presence of the Lord.
And not just the Lord, it says, at the presence of the God of Jacob. That's so specific. Why anchor this cosmic, earth-shattering power to Jacob, a flawed, very human man?
Because it connects the cosmic power to the personal covenant relationship. The power that makes the earth tremble is the same power that is personally invested in Jacob's family in Israel. It confirms that God wields His authority on behalf of His people.
So the command is for the whole earth to tremble.
Yes, but not just in terror. It's in reverent awe before its creator and its king. The final conclusion from the You Need Faith in Jesus team is just so powerful. God's presence changes everything. When He shows up, the laws of physics and the might of empires become secondary details.
But the psalmist doesn't end there with just this command to tremble. He finishes with one final, stunning example of God's character.
One that perfectly balances His power with His tender provision.
He moves from these huge geological upheavals to something so personal. The miracle of water from a rock in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Which turned the rock into a standing water. The flint into a fountain of waters. The shift in focus from shaking mountains to providing a drink of water is just, it's breathtaking.
It shows everything about His character.
It does. And the source material really details the scale of this. This wasn't just a trickle. He took flint, which is a particularly hard, unforgiving type of rock, and turned it into a fountain of waters.
An abundant source.
An abundant, overflowing, life-giving source. And the rock itself became a standing water, like a pool. It suggests permanence, saturation.
So it wasn't just about survival, it was about abundant transformation coming from the most barren, dead, unexpected source imaginable. A rock is the symbol of dryness.
And this is a direct historical callback. It grounds the poem in the story of God's care for them in the wilderness. The You Need Faith in Jesus team provides that essential cross-reference for us.
Right, we have to remember the stakes at that moment. This is from Exodus chapter 17, verse 6, where the command is given, "Behold, I will stand before thee there upon the rock in Horeb, and thou shalt smite the rock, and there shall come water out of it, that the people may drink."
God himself stood on the rock. His presence made the impossible happen.
Yeah.
And that final miracle just synthesizes his entire character. He's powerful enough to command the sea,
And shake the mountains.
and yet he is also a caring, detailed provider who meets the immediate physical needs of his people from the most unlikely sources.
So the God who controls the chaos of the ocean is the same God who gives you a drink when you're thirsty.
Right.
He doesn't just manage global physics, he manages your personal needs.
And that is the ultimate application for you listening right now, hoping the impossible. This is the spiritual parallel that brings a whole psalm right into our lives.
The God who brought life-giving water from a dead, flinty rock, he's the same God who brings spiritual life to our hard, resistant hearts. That flinty rock is a perfect picture of the human heart before he changes it.
And we can take so much comfort from that final image. When you feel like your life is dry or hard or barren, when you face a situation that just feels impossible, you look to the God of Jacob.
He specializes in this.
He specializes in bringing provision and healing and hope out of the driest, most impossible situations. No situation is too hard for the God whose presence makes the earth tremble and makes water flow from stone.
That is the ultimate comforting takeaway from this whole analysis. The power of the Exodus is directly applicable to the driest and most complex parts of our lives today.
So the practical action step here is a renewed confidence. We'd invite you to just identify the flinty rock in your life right now, that area where you see no possible solution, and consciously apply the truth of Psalm 114 to it. If God provided water in a dead wilderness, he can certainly provide what you need where you are today.
That powerful truth really wraps up this deep dive into Psalm 114. In just 8 short verses, we've seen this incredible journey of faith.
We started with that transformation of identity moving from the strange language of the world to becoming God's own sanctuary and dominion.
Then we looked at the staggering power he displayed, where creation itself recognized him and fled. The sea parting, the mountains skipping.
And finally, we were forced to pause and realize that the source of all this power is the God of Jacob, who not only commands the impossible, but also provides for his people from it.
So before we close, let's leave you, our listener, with one final thought to reflect on. This comes straight from the insights provided by the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
We've spent this time confirming that the inanimate earth, the sea, the mountains, it all trembles and obeys God's presence just because he is there.
So here's the question. If the physical, unthinking earth is so instantly and universally responsive to God's presence, how should we, who have been intentionally and lovingly made his sanctuary, respond? What is the one practical, immediate act of obedience or submission you can take today to align your life with the rule of the God who is powerful enough to bring water from Flint?
It's about aligning our own will, which can be as hard as flint sometimes, with the will of the one who defines us, owns us, and sustains us, even in the driest wilderness.
We want to thank you for joining us for this focused discussion on the power and provision in Psalm 114. This in-depth analysis was made possible by the incredible study and perspective of the You Need Faith in Jesus team.
Until next time, keep digging into the text and let the awe of God's presence completely redefine your perspective and the scale of your hope.